Alright, so I'm going to start this video with a bit of a story. Months ago, a company called Iceberg reached out after we restarted our heatsink reviews. I mean, we do get a ton of requests from different companies, but Mike and I actually thought that this whole thing was fake, since every one of their products looked like nothing more than a rendering. But even then, these look like some of the most unique coolers around. So yeah, we ended up requesting something and see what actually ends up showing up. At worst, we won't be getting anything, or it looks something like you get from a failed Wish order. So fast forward a bit and this showed up, the Iceberg IceSleet X7 Dual. And you know what, funky names aside, this thing actually looks pretty darn close to those renderings. I mean, sure, you would need a specific build to go along with this particular cooler, but I'm actually sort of digging this, guys. Not only that, but this isn't a custom job. It's actually available to buy right now at a steep price of about $95. And that makes a bigger statement than any performance claims, since it puts the X7 right up against the legendary Noctua U12A and a heck of a lot more than the U12S, the U14S, and my personal favorite, the Scythe Fuma 2. So the question that needs to be answered here is, are you paying for a fancier looking cooler like this one, which looks pretty cool actually, or is there any actual performance to back up that price? Well, let's find out right after this.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their fourth generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets, guaranteed.
Okay, so first off, I have to give some credit to these guys for using packaging that's completely recyclable. I keep saying this, but I wish more companies would do this. And there's also been a lot of thought put into how everything's laid out. You have AMD components in their own area and Intel in the other, so there's less chance installation items will get mixed up. From far away, I do have to say that the Iceberg X7's multifaceted heatsink cover looks pretty stunning. But up close, well, it's a big mass piece of plastic, guys. Don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it does cause some small gaps between the different pieces. This thing is just flat out unique, but I'm sure there's going to be people who fall into one of two groups. Either you hate it or you absolutely love it. And of course, there's RGB as well, with both the top logo and the intake fan being illuminated. I mean, it looks okay, but I think this whole thing's better without any lighting at all. But at the same time, this design leads to the same problem that Arctic faced with their Freezer 50. Both the exterior 120mm and interior 140mm fans are completely built into the frame, so you can't swap them or replace them if something goes wrong. Either way, under all that plastic is a really well-built dual tower layout with super thin fin stacks. The plastic actually keeps a lot of the airflow focused at going through those towers, but I'm not sure if the static pressure on the fans is going to be enough to keep air moving efficiently. Those two towers are each linked to the end of 7 6mm diameter heat pipes that run into a really well-finished nickel-plated copper base, and it looks gorgeous, guys. All in all, this thing's really well built, a lot better than I'd expect from a pretty new company. But then again, the X7 costs almost $100. As for the overall size, it's pretty bulky at 135mm long by 150mm wide and 166mm high. But the height shouldn't be a problem for most ATX cases. The length causes some overhang on memory, and if that's the case, there's only 45mm of clearance before smacking into the plastic. In general though, for such a chunky heatsink, compatibility shouldn't be too much of a problem. Installation is, well, there's both positive and negative points. You get clearly marked brackets and bags for Intel and AMD systems, and thankfully, there's also a lot of common components for each platform, so you don't get a ton of parts to search through. The quality is on point as well, without anything feeling cheap, and that tube of thermal compound is a nice touch since it lasts you for 3 to 4 applications. I really appreciate the way Iceberg approached their installation manual as well. The directions are clear, the illustrations don't need a magnifying glass to read, and all the parts being manipulated are highlighted in their brand steel color. It's really well done, guys. As for the installation itself, well, on AMD it's pretty straightforward. You remove the 2 side panels from the cooler. Then carefully remove the top, making sure that you detach the small RGB power cable. From that point on, you'll need to remove the stock AMD mounting bracket, reuse the back plate, add studs, and then screw down the retention brackets for the cooler. But like usual, Intel's 775, 1150 series, 1136, and 1200 is a bit more complicated since those Intel platforms don't come with a backplate, so you've got to use the one that Iceberg provides. I have to appreciate them sticking to the branding with the blue and gray look, but I hate that it's plastic. The next steps are the same for every platform, and I'm not too crazy about it. Installing the top brackets is pretty straightforward, but for some bizarre reason, Iceberg didn't pre-install a retention arm that's got the 2 screws on it. Instead, you would need to use the little thumb screws to secure it in place. Anyways, once that's on, just secure it into place and get ready for some serious frustration. You see, these plastic panels might look pretty, but getting them back into place without any gaps is a total pain in the ass, guys. Sometimes you might get lucky, but just be ready to spend maybe 15 minutes or so of just pure frustration. Another thing you'll need to take into consideration is memory clearance. Like I mentioned before, since the integrated fan will overhang into the slots of most motherboards. Anyways, with that out of the way, I think it's time to move on to our usual temperature testing, starting at the 120 watt setting, which basically covers a lot of the mid to high-end processors. For anyone wondering, here's how speed percentages on these fans align with decibel readings on this cooler. We're going to start adding these as guidance for anyone who buys one of these heatsinks and wants to replicate our results. Starting with temperatures over time, here the Iceberg X7 is able to give similar results to some of the best coolers around at pretty comparable noise levels. It may be a degree or two hotter, but anything under 65 degrees is a really respectable result that'll cover a good 95% of users out there. It won't touch the Fuma 2 though. I mean, I just feel like that's one impressive cooler. Now, one interesting thing you'll notice is the X7's results carry a lot further to the right in all of our charts. And that's because its fans get much, much louder as their RPMs level increase, all the way up to a screaming 50 decibels. And at least at this low heat load, those high fan speeds don't do a darn thing. Meanwhile, the graph only starts at 36 decibels, since setting the fans to anything under that causes them to stall out. Now, for those of you who like something a bit simpler to look at with a few more coolers added, here's how everything lines up. You can see there isn't a single heatsink that struggles here unless you go with something on the lower end. Switching to 165 watts, and this is where things start going a bit janky for the X7 in comparison to the competition. I mean, don't get me wrong, under 75 degrees at 165 watt heat load, it is still completely acceptable, but not for almost $100. But there's something else I need to point out, and that's the massive dip between 38 and 40 decibels. That points towards the fans having a very, very narrow sweet spot where they deliver optimal cooling performance. Meanwhile, at a standardized 38 decibels, the X7 trails the pack, but remember, increasing fan speeds just a bit to 40 decibels makes a world of a difference here. Now, this next test is really, really intense because it actually is above Iceberg's maximum 225 watt TDP spec for this cooler, but we decided to do it anyway. And this was pretty much expected, with the cooler failing the test at 110 degrees up until the 40 decibel noise mark. Even then, it stays at or above 100 degrees until the fans are screaming along at over 70% and louder than anything else in our charts. I really can't fault Iceberg for this since we're pushing beyond their recommendations. Sadly, at 38 decibels, it couldn't stop the CPU from throttling, so there isn't really much to see here. So, the Iceberg X7. Basically, it doesn't try to hide what it is. It's a heatsink that's trying to look super unique while also delivering respectable cooling performance. Now, regardless of what you think of teal plastic and the RGB combination, that's exactly what it is, even if the numbers aren't groundbreaking. And I need to put this into perspective, guys. We put this cooler up against the best of the best, and a cooler doesn't need to be on the top of a chart to get our approval. The only thing going against the X7 is really its price, and of course, the janky shroud installation. If you can get past that, and if you want something that looks super unique, you can be confident that it'll perform pretty well at reasonable decibel levels. But otherwise, if you are looking for just raw performance, there are a lot of better options out there, many of which cost a lot less. So on that note, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the Iceberg X7. Does it give you that wow factor? I'm just curious to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. All right, so let's start with this fan. I suppose it's gonna go this way. Just like that. Oh, I forgot to install the RGB cable. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that's the top panel. Now we have to do what I think is the center. Alright. I mean, yeah, it is a complete pain in the butt to get this on, but this is bad. Alright, let me see if I can redo this again. So, got this fan here. I'm gonna put it back up just like that. But before that, I need to make sure that there's room here. And then I'm gonna bring this down. There we go. Okay, I think I got it now. Kind of. This is flush, but this is not flush. What? Okay, now it's flush. Oh, all right.